We are back. We hope you had a good break. Welcome to the next part of our program where our expert speaker will take us through how ECD is a fundamental building block for a child's sustainable development. He is a social ecologist, environmental scientist, and human development researcher. His work interweaves scholarship and real world practice to explore the complex relations between individuals, society, and ecosystems in the context of sustainable development. He holds a PhD with a focus on social ecology and developmental science from Yale University, where he is also a fellow at Ziegler Center for Early Childhood Development Policy. Currently, he is the Knowledge Exchange Lead for Early Childhood Development Action Network and serves as consultant for UNICEF Global Early Childhood Programs. Please welcome Dr. Adrian Cerezo.
Thank you, Leah. Thank you, everybody. Good morning. I want to thank the honorable ministers that are with us today, and certainly thank ARNEC for putting together an excellent conference that is going to be of great benefit to the region and to the global process. Also, the representatives from organizations that support early childhood development. And I want to give my special appreciation to the youth leaders that are joining this conference as part of our intention to build collaborations with youth in the climate change negotiations. Today, I will be speaking to you about the idea of expanding our narrative from young children as most vulnerable to young children as most valuable, and the transformational power that early childhood development policy has and can have in climate change policy. I will start by telling you a short story that begins with what we all know about and we have been discussing so far, which is young children are the most vulnerable of the most vulnerable, especially when they come from vulnerable families or they are being raised in vulnerable families and vulnerable communities. And I know we use the term vulnerable countries a lot when talking about climate change, but there are developed countries that are not necessarily completely vulnerable. And we have to make sure that in every country, people that are at risk and young children that are at risk are attended to. So let's start this story. Every child is like a seed that is bursting with potential. But as it is in agriculture and with seeds, young children experience different kinds of risks in their development. They have to do with disabilities. When there are problems with malnutrition, it might lead to stunting. When there can be different problems related to health, like vector-borne diseases, respiratory diseases. There are problems that have to do with displacement, toxic stress, living in marginalized communities, and learning disabilities. These are some examples. In the normal process of growing up, this is like a drizzle that can affect the development of a person or the development of this seed. But when you add climate change to that equation, that drizzle becomes a storm. And that storm can have immense impact in the development of that person, accumulating much more risk than you would have in normal situations. And so far today, we have talked about many examples of how that is happening in different parts of Asia and the Pacific region and globally. So that is what we know and what we have been talking about. What I want to underscore and emphasize is that there is a second narrative that is just as important and is going to serve us really well in building our presence in the climate negotiations. When that seed is protected from the very beginning with the tools of the Nurturing Care Framework as an example of tools that we have set up based on evidence to provide the best programs and care for young children, that child is protected from the effects, the normal effects and risks of early childhood development. And they can grow and thrive even if that that level of risk is increased into a storm by things like climate change. And with that development that is protected, they can grow and yield the fruit of their potential later on in life. More importantly, there is a compounded return on investment in this attention to early childhood development. When that seed is nurtured, mindfully thinking about the sustainable development goals, not only are we protecting the growth of that child and leading into their individual potential and the potential of their community and their family, but we're also growing the capacity of that child to become an adult that contributes in their development throughout their lifespan to the achievement of the sustainable development goals. And in doing so, because climate change is one of the sustainable development goals and other forms of sustainability and wildlife conservation, we are also turning what is the storm of climate change potentially back into the drizzle of the normal risks of childhood development and human development. So how do we do this? What are the challenges that need to be met in order to protect the development of children and make sure that they achieve most of their potential, that they have the resilience necessary to attend to the current risks of climate change and to promote sustainable development? Well, the key to unlocking the transformational capacity of ECD programs is programs that are financed adequately, that they have the right amount of money, so that the programs have the right amount of quality, so that they can be distributed in the most equitable way for all of the people that can need those programs. It is also important that we elevate ECD in the climate change policy arena. And in order to do that, we are currently working with multiple partners, including these ones and other ECD institutions. We are also recruiting champions and leaders throughout the Asia-Pacific region and advocates like the youth advocates and leaders like Sediaki, who's going to speak next, so that we can go to the Sharm el-Sheikh COP27 and elevate the importance of considering early childhood development as a key topic, as a fundamental topic in building a different understanding of how to move towards a resilient community and attending to the issues of adaptation in climate change. Beyond that, we want to infuse the topic of early childhood development throughout the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change process, and to move further and make sure that the next iteration of the Sustainable Development Goals think of early childhood development as a fundamental cross-cutting topic throughout the whole process. This is important because this is the point where we gain financing, we can gain financing that would be used for other forms of technological adaptation and human development adaptation. We need to make early childhood development a priority in financing for climate change, resilience, and adaptation. Here's an asterisk, finally, because I think it needs to be underscored. This is something that is obvious to us in the ECD field, but when most environmental negotiations talk about children, they don't understand that there is a fundamental distinction between ECD and other moments in childhood. So it is really important for this process to be successful, and this process of making early childhood development elevated and a fundamental topic in the climate negotiations. It is really important that we make sure that when we are building relationships, we are making clear that we are referring to early childhood development with a focus on the first 1,000 days. Here are some questions that need to be addressed in order to keep this process moving forward. We need to increase the climate knowledge in the ECD community, which we are doing through ARNEC. And hopefully EGDAN is going to participate with us and UNICEF and Bernard Van Leer in doing more work in making the ECD community more aware of the science of climate change and the policy process of climate change. We need to move towards building stronger relationships with climate science and policy community. We need to advance the research on the intersection between ECD and climate change and the SDGs so that we can show more evidence of why is it important to make ECD fundamental in this process. And one key question that is going to be asked next, and we need to start considering, is how much financing is needed to reach a transformational critical mass in early childhood development programs so that we can ask for the right amount of financing to have the right kind of impact. So in summary, early childhood development is a point in life where we are the most vulnerable, but if we use it in the correct way and we bring all of our experience and evidence to bear in the process of climate change policy, we can become one of the most valuable tools for achieving resilience and adaptation in countries. And with that, I want to thank you and ask you to join us tomorrow for more discussions on ECD and climate change. Thank you.